So now that we've had the camper for a little bit and we've had the opportunity to take it on a couple trips, we've kind of been making a list of things that we want to add to the camper as we have the money or the funds to do so. And the first thing on our list that we're going to work on in this video today is the addition of a cell phone booster. When we were on our first trip this year, the cell phone signal was shoddy at best, and as soon as we went into the camper, the cell phone signal dropped altogether. Well, it just so happened that a couple storms actually rolled through that weekend. It was a pretty wet, soggy trip, to be honest. And why I'm like just about everybody else out there, I like to be off grid. That's the whole point of camping. I also want to have access to things like weather apps in the event that a storm does roll through. In Indiana, where I live, we've had 2 state parks in the last few years here that have been pretty decimated by tornadoes, and I didn't want to take the chance of being on one of my trips and not know that was coming or have to rely on someone else to let me know I need to get out. So that being said, I reached out to HiBoost to see if they were willing to partner with me on this project. They were gracious enough to send me out one of the units to try out on this unit. So what we're going to do today is we're going to see if we can go ahead and get this unit installed in the rig here. I'll do some initial testing, and then when we take the camper out on our next trip here soon, we'll actually run through those numbers and see how well the signal increases, and I'll see if I can get some real life data for you as well, so you can see exactly what to expect from this unit. So let's go ahead and get this unit out of the box. I'll run you through the parts of what to expect with this installation. I spent the better part of around an hour kind of running through the rig to figure out how wiring is ran in this and exactly how I'm going to get into my camper. One of the biggest things I wanted to make sure of is with this being brand new, I didn't want a chance voiding any warranties. I think I came up with a pretty good game plan where I can use some existing holes and run this wire pretty cleanly at the same time. So I'll run you through my game plan here, and then maybe it'll give you some ideas on how you can possibly run one of these in your rig, even if you don't have the exact same floor plan and model that I've got. So with that being said, let's go get the contents out of the box. We'll take a look at this thing together, and then we'll go ahead and start working on this install. Okay, I figured I'd take a second to sit in the camper and in the AC to get out of the heat for a little bit before I start sweating my butt off on this install. So here is the box that was sent out to me by HiBoost. Now, like I mentioned, this is the Travel 3.0 RV Max. So I've kind of listened to the customers over the years and applied those changes to the different versions. So let me go get this out of the box. I've already taken the time to thumb through the instructions. The instructions are pretty clear for the most part. Didn't have any problems there. Now there is going to be an app on this as well that we'll download to our phone. But inside your box here, the main unit is going to be this here. This also got a pretty beefy heat sink on it. But essentially this is the brains of the operation, your amplifier. And it's going to have basically a USB port here as well as like an outdoor connection for your outdoor antenna. And then on this side here will be your DC connection for your power as well as your indoor antenna. So we'll get that going here shortly. We'll go ahead and get the antenna unpacked. Now there's 2 sections of your antenna that you can essentially make it pretty tall, or you can just leave out one of your pieces here depending on how you want to do this or how high you want your antenna to be. And then we've got, this is going to be the ladder mount here. We'll get those out of the package here in a minute. It does come with a nice piece here that you could put on the roof. So if you're going to drill down for an access port, you got a weather tight seal you could put either on the wall or the roof itself. You just have to run sealant around that, but it's nice that they included this. I don't believe that was something they included in past versions. And then inside the box, we're also going to have the indoor antenna. And it's got a nice long cord here. And then here is one of your 2 power cables, so you can plug this into a 110 outlet, or they also give you a 12-volt adapter as well. So you could take your pick as to which power source you want to run this with. I'm actually going to be using the 12-volt for my install, and we'll show you how that's going to work out here in the video. Then you've got your antenna mount here. Now this is kind of cool. So you can basically screw this directly to a surface, or you can use your ladder mount kit and hook your antenna to this. What's cool about this is when you pull out here, you can rotate this down or around. It's 180 degrees of motion. So we're going to mount ours to the ladder that's on the back of my unit, and that's where my antenna is going to live. You've got your antenna itself, and then you're going to have 26 foot of cable as well. Let's take a second to talk about how this antenna actually works. So essentially, we're going to get this mounted up on the ladder, and when we get to where we're going, we'll flip it up, get it in the highest position we can get it, and that's going to help us bring that signal down into our amplifier. So I'll run that section of cable, and I'm going to take that down my ladder, underneath my rig, through the belly, and then I found an access hole that's under my cabinet that has a couple other wires coming in there. And under there is also a 12-volt, which is tapped for the carbon monoxide sensor. So I'm going to actually just run an adapter right there off that connection and just make it from a 3-port out to a 4-port connector. And that'll allow me to run my 12-volt off of that circuit there. And then I'll install my amplifier down there under that cabinet as well. But essentially, like I mentioned, with my rig being brand new, I didn't want to go through and have to drill a bunch of new holes in it. I didn't want to chance them fighting me on a warranty issue down the road. So I think this is going to be the easiest way for me to accomplish my install, make it clean, and then have it to where I didn't really alter any wiring in any way in the rig itself. For this cell phone booster to work, you essentially have to have 1 bar of signal wherever it is that you're staying or wherever you're stationed at. So it can take that one bar of signal and essentially boost that up. And what we'll do is we'll see if we can get some real numbers and see if we can figure out how big of a percentage of increase we get. Now here in my driveway, I've actually got pretty good cell signal where I live, so I don't think I'm going to be able to run this test in the driveway. However, we are going to try once we get this thing installed. And then as I mentioned, like I said, we'll get to that down to where we're going on our next trip. I'm pretty sure that campground down there has got pretty poor signal. I've read that already. So we'll be able to go down there and do a real world test on this, and we'll be able to see at the end of this video how well this unit actually works. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get back out in the heat. We're going to start working on the outside antenna. We'll get that ran down the ladder and get that worked up into the rig and see if we can get at least that far tonight, and then we may have to pick this back up tomorrow to finish the install. Okay, now I'm gonna see if I can balance myself on this ladder, and I'll see if I can walk you guys through the antenna on this thing here real quick. So essentially, we've got the antenna that's gonna go right here. That way when we flip this down, it'll flip down and to the outside and rest right here on the side of the ladder. I want to make sure it's going to be out of the way of my Camco Rhino water storage tank that I'm going to be mounting on the ladder back here as well. Plus we also take bikes with us, so I want to make sure it's going to be clear of all those things that we bring with us in addition to. But we're going to go ahead and clamp this right here to this bar, and I'll show you what that looks like once I get it done. And then we'll start routing that wire down under the cab and up into the cabinetry that's there in the kitchen. So we've got the antenna mounted on the ladder. We've got the wire ran down the ladder. I've got it all in the loom like I wanted to do. So essentially, all we got to do now is pop it loose from the stabilizer that's down here at the bottom, like that. We'll pull our handle up and up with the antenna, and that's all there is to. So when I get to the campsite, that's a real easy setup. So now the tedious task, we gotta get that wire ran underneath the belly of this camper. So let's see if we can get that tackled tonight here before I lose daylight, because I'm quickly running out of it. So here we are down here at the bottom of the ladder. This is gonna be our entry point to get into the belly. Essentially, I just ran a fish tape. This is a fiberglass rod. It's really thin, from the inside down through the hole that I'm going to be running this through, and then I just kind of snaked it down through the belly. This piece that back here, had to pop a couple bolts loose to get access to that. Pretty easy overall. I only had about maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes in getting this part here all done. So now I'm just going to go ahead and tape this line up to my fish tape, and then I'll start gently pulling this back, and that hole's pretty tight, so that's the part that I'm worried about. But should, as long as it pulls through that hole fine, we should be good to go. And if worst case scenario, we'll make a couple attempts at it, but hopefully this will all work out and pan out the way I want it to. I will see you guys up by the axles. This is the moment of truth. So we got to get right here between these two axles here. This is where I've got my fish tape coming down through the floor. So I've got that taped on. It's a really tight hole, so I'm hoping it fits through there just fine. I'm hoping I don't do a lot of tugging, but I'm gonna go and get this part done off camera real quick, and then I'll show you the entry point once we get back in the camper. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't usually get that lucky, but that actually went through the hole a lot better than expected. So you can see right here, I've got a group of wires that come through these cabinets right here, and this right here is my black line that I needed to have, and that is every bit of length that I've got. So if you're curious how far a 26-foot cable will go, it went from the top of my ladder down under my belly and about halfway down the fifth wheel. I pretty much used about every available foot that I had. So with that being said, I am sweating my butt off. I hadn't had dinner yet. I'm gonna get in the house, get myself some dinner. We'll pick this project back up tomorrow and see if we can get this thing finished out and at least get the install done. And we'll do the testing on our next trip like I mentioned. So I'll catch back up with you guys in the afternoon tomorrow. All right, so it's the next day. We're in the home stretch now. Let's go ahead and get this install finished up the rest of the way. This booster, essentially, the way I've got this planned out right now, is going to live, we're under this drawer right here. So when it came to planning out this project, I really would have ideally liked to have this up closer to the front, but that 26 foot that they give you is just not enough to come all the way down the ladder and go all the way across. Now, something you want to keep in mind when you read through the instructions on this as well, you want to have some separation from the outdoor antenna to the amplifier. And the way they describe that basically is if the antenna's on the back of the rig back here, you don't want this amplifier sitting basically directly underneath wherever it is you mount the antenna. So if you're going to mount your antenna up towards the front of your camper, you're going to want to probably try to get the amplifier either closer to the middle or the back, just depending on the length of what you're working with. My RV being 32 feet in length, I just wasn't going to be able to make it all the way to the front. So this is going to be a nice compromise location for me. Now, something else that really worked out in my favor as well, as I mentioned that you could plug this in with 110 or with a 12-volt adapter. Well, it just so happens on the outside of this cabinet here, right there, that black box, that is a CO2 monitor for this RV, and that is a 12-volt system. I don't have a outlet anywhere down here that I can tap into, and I didn't want to have to cut any wire or add an outlet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these little 12-volt adapters like this, and I'm going to add that in line with the circuit. And essentially the way this is ran, and it's going to be easy because I don't have to cut anything. You got these little electrical connectors like this that are down there, and right now it's tapped for 3. So I picked up a couple of these that upgrade to, this one is a 5-port, but you can pick them up in 4 as well. And essentially these things just have little levers that you pull down, and you're going to feed your wire in, and then that wire goes in there, snaps in place. So all I'm doing is adding a wire to the circuit, and it's basically no cutting, no drilling required this whole install. So that worked out really good in my favor. Okay, so quick summary here on the install. I think I've got everything buttoned up. Everything's working like I wanted it to. So essentially, as I mentioned, we come in through the floor right here. This is our outdoor antenna wire. I've got that all cleaned up, buttoned up, and over to my amplifier here. From there, you've got your indoor antenna. I've just kind of got the wire stashed out of the way at the moment. I don't know exactly where I'm going to be putting that antenna yet. So that's the last of my piece when I get this thing permanently installed. Off the side here, you'll also see here is your power wire, 12-volt supply going to that adapter I showed you. I went ahead and taped that in place just so it doesn't come apart going down the road. Over here you're going to see these are these electrical connectors I showed you. I actually went ahead and decided to add a switch. So these 3 wires here go up to the cabinet. So essentially when I come over here to the side of my cabinet, I went ahead and put a switch right here. So when I turn that on like so, and then come back down here, you'll see that the amplifier has turned on now, and that's just so this thing's not powered on all the time. I could just turn it off and on, and it won't kill the battery and drain my battery in my camper when we're not using this thing. Just an easy way to shut that on and off. And then you'll see I tapped into the 12-volt supply line like I showed you, which goes to the propane gas detector. I think I actually misspoke earlier in the video. I called it a CO2 monitor, but this is actually the propane gas detector that's mounted right here on the side of the cabinet. That's where I grabbed my 12-volt from. But essentially, like I said, I didn't drill any holes in walls or roof of the unit itself. The only hole I did actually end up drilling was that one for the switch right here. That should not be a big issue, at least I hope so anyways. I didn't alter any of the wiring either, or cut anything that wasn't meant to be cut. This could all be put back exactly how the manufacturer had it set up when I bought the unit itself. So that's all there is to the install. Pretty easy for the most part. Just kind of goes to show you that you can actually get this done without having to drill a hole in your actual camper itself. As long as you take the time to do a little bit of planning ahead of time and figure out a good placement for the unit where the wire is going to be able to reach to. So in a couple days here, we'll head out, we'll get to the state park, and we'll see what the cell signal looks like when I get there. We'll do some comparison numbers between what the numbers are without the booster running and when the booster's turned on. We'll see what kind of increase we get. Okay, let's go ahead and get this video finished up. So we're actually out on our camping trip right now. We are here in Madison, Indiana at Clifty Falls State Park, and I spent the last couple days here messing with the signal booster just to see what kind of actual results I can get with this. And I've got some results to share with you, and I'm actually going to run a speed test right now just to show you what I'm getting with and without the booster on. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pop onto just Speed Smart, which is a speed test basically, and we'll go ahead and hit the button on this. And we'll go ahead and run this test here while we're talking to you. Now I have the signal booster turned off at the moment, so we should see a lot lower signal just based on that signal booster being off. Now what I can tell you from being on this trip so far and playing with this off and on over the weekend is that when I don't have the signal booster on, my phone is pretty much useless inside of my fifth wheel. Every once in a while, especially like late night or when the sky's real clear, I was able to actually pick up a little bit of coverage, and certain apps would work, others would not. So right now, speed test with the signal booster off, I am seeing 2.1 megabytes per second on the download and 0.1 megabytes for the upload. It's not great, and in actuality, that's actually pretty good for the weekend and all the tests I've ran. There's been a couple times where my phone's actually read SOS, which is basically no signal, which also means if there's SOS signal on the outside of the camper, this signal booster would effectively be useless. But every time I've ran these tests so far over the weekend, I've never had that issue with the outdoor antenna not having a signal that I've been able to catch so far. Now we'll go ahead and turn the signal booster on real quick, so give me just a second. Okay, so now the signal booster's on. I'm going to go ahead and run the second test with that on. And basically, like I mentioned, if I've been outside, like sitting at the campfire, and I'm trying to use my phone, the indoor antenna isn't close enough for me to be able to pick up that signal. So essentially, I've got better signal in my fifth wheel on the inside than I do outside when I'm sitting, because the amplified antenna is not actually doing me any justice. So sitting here right now with this test and the signal booster on, I'm seeing 7.7 on the download speed and 1.8 on the upload. So you can see that more than doubled. It actually is like 3, almost 4x the speeds that I was getting. That's actually pretty average for what I've been seeing this weekend. So I can basically use my phone inside my camper, and I've been able to pull up the radar, and I've been able to look at other things like trying to find directions to different restaurants and things like that we've been wanting to find while we've been sitting here. So that's effectively what I wanted this signal booster for, is to be able to actually kind of look things up on the fly for trying to find somewhere to go, or just wanting to watch the weather. That's exactly what this cell phone booster was designed to do. Something else I thought I'd run through with you real quick. I mentioned there was an app that you can download for this as well, and I'll go ahead and get that pulled up here real quick, and that is called Signal Supervisor. And when you pull into that, essentially that's going to Bluetooth over to the amplifier, and it's going to bring up these 4 different little graphs right here, and these parameters are basically picking up different wavelengths, like, because each cell tower runs on like a different band, and I don't know all those by heart, but essentially, depending on whether you're AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and which tower you're picking up, it's going to read in one of these bands. And what you're seeing here is basically the amplified signal, the output signal, is going to be 50 dB. That's going to be the max output that this amplifier is capable of doing. You're seeing that I'm getting the max output and amplification from this amplifier right now. And then if you look down below that, you'll see another signal. And some of them say acceptable, and most of them say poor. And essentially, we're looking at like a -15 versus some of them are -22. The closer to 0 for this number, the stronger the signal is going to be. And in this case, if you're looking around the -15, you're probably in the middle of what you're going to see as far as that input power coming in. And then if it's up more on that -30, that's considered the poor. That's really where we're getting down to that 1 bar situation from what I've been able to tell so far. But that's just a quick look at their app and what that's going to show you as far as what numbers are coming and going. And to also give you an idea as to where I've got my antenna, essentially I've got it just sitting over on the ledge by my TV. It's about 6 or 7 feet away from me right now. The closer to your antenna, the better. So if I'm up in the front of my fifth wheel in my master bedroom, I do notice a little bit of a signal drop going to the bedroom if I'm looking at my phone laying in bed at night. But it's not the end of the world. It's not terrible. So it's actually still pretty decent. I can still use it. But sitting here at my dining room table where I am right now is where I'm getting the best signal and the best speeds at within my fifth wheel. But I think that pretty much wraps it up. I hope that was somewhat helpful for you guys as far as how the signal booster works. For me, it was a pretty easy install. It took a little bit of time to get that thing set up. If you take your time, just find a good path. Or if you're not wanting to make it permanent like I did, obviously you can just mount that thing up. You can run the wire into a window or a slide box, something like that, to get that wire in here. And then you can just leave it lay. You can tear it down when you're done. It's really just kind of take your pick as how you want to do that. I think I came up with a pretty clean way of how to put mine in, though. It's worked out really good for me so far. After testing it for the whole weekend, I've been pretty impressed with it. So if you're looking for a signal booster, check out this one made by HiBoost. I think it's actually a pretty good unit. Other than that, I think that's all I've got for you in this video today, guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.